have Elle Swackhammer to present. And whenever your IT is ready to go, I guess you guys can get going. Please go right ahead.
Well, thank you very much for providing us the opportunity here to present on behalf of the Ancaster High staff and ultimately the students of Ancaster High as well. Our goal is to give you some information that hopefully you can think about during any of your considerations when you're looking at the West Arc and Ancaster High specifically, and specifically with in mind 3 questions: is whether our facility can facilitate education of our students in the future, can we become a 21st century learning and teaching environment, and ultimately, will our building allow us to successfully compete for students in our own catchment area? So those are kind of the critical questions. Our answer is kind of emphatically no. And whether or not those could be addressed by renovation and revitalizing alone, again, no, and we'll give you some facts for this. I just wanted to kind of lay out the position first. The staff does certainly support the plan that was put forward by the West Arc that proposed the construction of a new building on the Jerseyville Road property, and does support certainly the keeping, if at all possible, of the west wing with the auditorium as it currently stands, with the pool, if it can be used for some other structure, as well as the campus itself, and we'll go into reasons why that is as well. Here's a quote from the board's Education for the 21st Century or Secondary Schools of the Future pamphlet, which talks about how schools cannot be left without major renovations for long periods because of the exponential change that we're experiencing in education. And people say to me, well, it's not just about the bricks and mortars. Yes, education is about more than that, but the bricks and mortars can certainly limit what you can do, and it doesn't allow you to be flexible in education. Why not revitalize or renovate? The building right now is 53 years old and held at the 2010. The recap was over $8 million worth of renovations that would have needed to be done. We leave it another 8 years to 2020. We're looking at over 15 million. The recap is calling for, and we lived through many years where we kind of were looking at that, build up the number of repairs and try to become prohibitive to repair, because that was the strategy in past years as to how you might get a new building, and of course that's not the way things are done now. So nothing much other than that I can remember than the Big East boilers has been done since I get there. It needs a lot of materials, windows, etc. But to me, the biggest problem with the school is that fragmented nature of it. The fact that it was built in many additions, those 3 dates are just some of the additions that were added. It makes collaboration, both with students and staff, just very difficult because we're fragmented. And just to give you an idea of that fragmentation, you can see the aerial view here. There's the original part of the school. There was a wing that was added a couple of years later. There's the library and another cafeteria and gym. There's the tech hall. There's the other building, which was a separate entity and was given to the school because they needed space and connected by a tunnel. There's the auditorium that was added, and then again the pool added later. So the fragmentation, so you could have teachers teaching over here a class and then over there a class, same subject, just having to run from that quarter mile. As we always say, in a fun way, it's easier to go outside to get in the other end of the building than to try and get through the hallways. So it's that, if you can keep in mind, that fragmented structure of the building that gets in the way of renovations. A new build would have classrooms that are bigger, and there's a couple of examples. Science labs, 250 square feet bigger in a new build than they would be in our school. The library would be 1,300 square feet bigger, even classrooms, over 100 square feet bigger. So even if you try to renovate in the building, you can't do what new schools can do in those buildings. We still have asbestos through the east wing, which would have to be removed, or it limits anything we try to do in renovations. And there's multiple centers for controlling the HVAC, the electricity. So as soon as you try to renovate, you have to figure out how to tie in things to the different areas of electrical and HVAC supply. From the 21st century document, again, are 7 identified areas of what a secondary school of the future needs. And I'm going to go through a quick tour of the school to give you ideas and to keep you thinking about whether you think this building can do these 7 things, from being flexible to supporting technology, providing a safe, healthy, and aesthetically pleasing environment, facilitating curriculum, both new and old, extracurricular, staff development, and being accessible. So there's some of those key words, as well as some new terms: e-learning, blended learning, SHISMs, programs of choice, health and safety, and I'm going to touch on brain-based learning, which is another element. As far as flexibility goes, we don't have many meeting spaces. Our class sizes, you're trying to do collaborative learning, differentiated instruction, meet individual learning styles. It's hard. Here's a picture of our library, which is far too small to do anything close to the new Learning Commons that they're trying, because we just don't have space to have all the different kinds of learning areas we need within one room. It was built as a library, not as a Learning Commons. Just trying to facilitate technology. We have Wi-Fi dead zones through the school. We've had to run wires. It was hard to even get the West Wing attached sort of through the computer services. We had all kinds of problems. And we have ongoing problems with electrical service and outlets. So in the meantime, on our little tour here, we see conduit that runs everywhere in the school. Always looks like somebody's basement, because every time they have to run something new, it has to go down the hallway because it can't go up in the asbestos ceiling. Here's a teacher trying to use a smartboard technology with one plug in the classroom and running cords everywhere. Another one that's trying to do group work, but the groups have to coordinate around the plugs, not otherwise. You can't get the groups in one place because you're always trying to, well, here's the plug and here's the extension cord. Everybody is in the center of the room. That's the only place there is to work. And someone brought to my attention, the curtains are so bad that you can't block the light from the smart boards and the screens. So in all times you can't see the screens. You have the technology, and now the students don't get full use of it. We have panels that run down the east wing, and you can see the difference, the shininess versus the dullness. They were replacing them, and they replaced this, and then the company went out of business and they stopped replacing them after that. So that's why the look of the outside is like this, and they let light through. So again, there's nothing you can do with a classroom that has these translucent panels. Light gets through them unless you hang full-length curtains on them. This is again from the same document of the board that used the student voice to say, what do students want in a new school? And of all the red bullets there, I would argue that our building doesn't do many of them, if any of them, the way it stands right now. So from tranquil areas, natural lighting, all of these things we have trouble doing, not because our staff doesn't try, but because the building doesn't let us. Some information from brain-based learning is that if any of these factors happens to be an irritant, the brain doesn't turn on to its learning processes. So if you have too humid an environment, too crowded, unwanted noise, poor lighting, odors, irritants, all of those things, temperature extremes, the brain can't even turn on to its learning mode because of these. And so I would say we have had mold problems. Here's one in the library that they fixed. This wall was covered in mold, and the window wells covered in mold. They fixed them now, but we're not sure that it's not growing in behind other things up against walls that aren't insulated. So of course moisture gets through them, so we don't know where it might be until you finally see it. We have science lab sinks that look like this. They're not cleaned by caretaking. They stay this way and not sort of unplugged till the fact that we get leaks down to the second floor. We have encapsulated asbestos that regularly has to be maintained because it's being damaged. Windows that don't open, this one happens to be bolted shut with that. You can't even open this one, so you can't get air in. Regular roof leaks, plumbing problems, tripping and allergens from old carpets, air conditioners that break and are not replaced, heating issues all the time where classrooms will be just cold because the bubbles stop. We have driveway issues where the car, now this, I couldn't get a picture of all the traffic, but it turns into gridlock. We board up windows rather than replace them. The front door is really the back door of the school. We have no entryway. Lights that don't get recovered, flooring that doesn't get rematched, science desks that don't get painted, and baseboards that are coming off, ceiling tiles, etc. This one is interesting. The floor is actually leaning away because there's rumors there's an underground waterway under the east wing of the school that's actually causing the floor to fall away. Crumbling supports in the windows, cafeteria space limited. And then we get into crowded classrooms like music. There's the textiles room where they have to do the cutting, sewing, etc. in a small room like that. Science rooms. The theater arts room with no lighting bar, no dressing rooms, no storage, and there's an art room, etc. with 28. Phys ed, we can't say enough about the facilities of the phys eds. and I'm going to let Mike answer questions about that. There's our wonderful fields and our campus that's just a jewel in the board and should be treated that way. Again, used hard for staff to develop in a school like this, so again, it's not supporting that. And I want to get into the one last bit. Accessibility, certainly some of our disabled students can't get into certain areas. Does it allow us to become a secondary school of the future? We say no to those elements. And can we compete for students? Under the board's numbers, we are rated to be 65% utilization. If we get to that point, then what are we going to do then? Because again, students will be attracted to the new building if there is one, and our programs would thrive if we had that new building to attract them. So we ask the question, if not now, when, that Ancaster might get a new school to prepare its students properly for the future.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Now I'll look to trustees. Reminder to trustees, we have 5 minutes for questions for clarification. I have Trustee Brennan first.
Yes, for clarification, Mr. Chair, Ms. Swackhammer has 2 other people with her. I don't believe I heard any names.
Would you like to introduce yourselves first?
Hi, I'm Reg Varghese.
Hi, I'm Mike Scher.
Any other questions for clarification? Trustee Hicks?
You mentioned you'd have to attract students to bring your numbers up to justify a new school. Could you give me an idea where those students would come from?
Certainly, we don't retain all of our grade 8s in the public board to the high school, though I've talked to guidance and they're saying that we are starting to attract a little more, but we do lose some. We've lost, because the boundaries changed at one point in our Meadows students and Scenic Woods people were told for a while they had to go to McNabb, and rather than go to McNabb, they chose to go to Bishop Tonus. So there's kind of a psychology now that a lot of them will choose to go to the Catholic board instead of coming to us. And in new growth areas, we're competing on an equal basis, certainly with Bishop Tonus. They come through our school, they come through theirs, and they compare. And we see them on parents' nights, you know, looking around our building and then looking around that one.
So the majority of students in the near future you would like to come from Tonus to Ancaster, is that correct?
The ones that, yes, the ones that we would normally have lost to them from the public board, like they're in public schools now.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Trustee Turkstra?
I guess I'm not the only one who's kind of shocked by the pictures. And I guess my question is, does staff feel safe?
Can you answer that?
Well, we address it. Every time we find something, we address it. We try to get it done, but things, we'll get told there's no money to fix certain things, and we just live with those. But when we addressed the fact that we thought we found mold in the library, it was addressed within 3 weeks. But the way they addressed it was just to board everything up, like clean it and board it up instead of kind of fixing the situation. So, and it's not looking elsewhere. But the carpet's been identified for years, but it's expensive, so it doesn't get done. Certain things just don't get done.
And the asbestos is contained?
Again, we just identified more areas where students have marked it, and they're sending somebody out within a week again to get that contained again. But it's an ongoing, because it's out there where students can be.
Thank you.
Trustee Johnstone?
This is not a question, but I have to make a statement because this school is in my area. I think that for a long time we have seen Ancaster community as one that is wealthy and one that we would assume would have a marvelous school, or at least one that was acceptable. That is not the case, and I think that we've seen from many of these pictures tonight. I hope that has worked to debunk some of the many myths that we've held about this community because of its wealth. And I hope that as we go forward with this ARC process, that we really consider ensuring that all students across the system have access to acceptable 21st century learning environment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion. Trustee Brennan, thank you. To receive. Thank you, Trustee Johnstone, second. All those in favor? That is unanimous, and I'd like to thank all three of you for coming today and sharing this information with us. Thank you so much.